Sometimes a cigar is just a prop. Star Trek. Today on Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you by hook or by crook from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47. Hey, for some sanity, clarity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek. This is an interesting bit that's popped up, and usually, I don't ride the waves of whatever the socials are doing because it tends to go away. We're not quite Lordy. We are not in those crisis of the week moments the way we were before. I prefer to sit back and see what the long-term issues and themes and topics are going to be when we're talking about current Trek and just betting on how much of this anyone's going to care about in 5 years or 10 years. But this week I thought was a good example. I thought was a good illustrative example. If you're watching me later on YouTube right now, you're missing all this live interaction. And you're going to miss our chat later on and the Parent Analytics ratings update. So think about joining us live if you can sometime. But right now, I want to jump into sometimes a cigar is just a prop, Star Trek, because I think it's safe to say that in most quarters, the debut of Picard this week, and congratulations, everyone. Congratulations, Terry Matalis and Kiva Goldsman, and hey, Dave Blass and that amazing art team. I mean, a lot of this is led by the visuals, the sets, and the ship porn, and everything going on right now. But I think the feel and vibe of the show as well, the acting. People get it that it's moved on 2 years. Spoilers since the end of Picard season 1. What's funny is, though, as always, you watch something. I'd seen the screeners. We saw the preview Wednesday night. Good on Paramount Plus for finding ways to have lots and lots of fans. Kudos on them for broadening that audience, potentially coming to the virtual screener. I wonder if it'll be the last one. I wonder if Strange New Worlds will go back to live previews, or if there'll be a live and a virtual premiere party. We'll see. But it's safe to say that the initial response to Picard, I'm pretty sure, has been positive. Of course, there's always going to be a wrinkle out there. And apparently, among some quarters, there was a bit of kerfluffle because good old Cristobal Rios got to retain his cigar. Now, you could say that on the La Serena, it was his freighter. It was his ship. He can, his ship, his rules. He can do whatever the hell he wants to. Aside from the overall view of smoking in general and tobacco use and addiction, if you want to go there, in the 21st century. And kids, we've advanced 2 years from 2499. We are technically now, with Picard, in the 25th century. Not quite to the 25th and a half century. So yeah, we're in the 25th century, and there's a bit of a kerfluffle here back in the early 21st about the depiction of smoking. Now, here's a couple things. Number one, did I mention that people are over the moon about the ships and they're over the moon about the costumes? Okay, so I'm talking about a narrow slice of fandom here, but it seemed to ignite some aspect of fandom this week. And I'm just thinking about, tobacco aside, the affinity of, personal affectations. We've got a long history of that. I mean, where do people go off and they're allowed a little bit of it? For one thing, in the 23rd century, Scotty and Chekhov still having their accents. And even in the 24th, Miles O'Brien still having kind of a light accent that pops out every once in a while. You could even say about McCoy's Southern drawl, too. We've seen affectations like that. Now, you would think that the cultural blending, something like drawls and accents, individual verbal, that would have long been drowned out. But I'm going to say that, as we've been saying since the 70s and explaining this, Scotty and Chekhov's accents, it's a point of personal pride. It's something they've worked on themselves. It's like a hobby. It's like cooking. Sure, you can use the replicator. 98% of the world uses their replicator. But there are some folks, like Riker, like Cisco, others who keep up live cooking as a hobby. You're going to say, Larry, that's eating. That's not smoking. I know. I'm just going down the line here. I remember Captain Styles and his swagger stick. I mean, if you really wanted to have your personalities, your unique personalities, your local color in Starfleet, some might say it was ego unhinged, But I'd like to think across Starfleet we have ego in check. And if we don't, then that's the recipe for, your Captain Laytons and your Badmirals, right, down the line. And that's where we're going to go. Your Captain Ransom, as in Voyager's renegade captain that was discovered on the Equinox. You're going to have that. And if that's the DNA code in there, then you're going to have repercussions. But the vast majority of people just like to have something individualistic. And look, even beyond there, Sisko with his indulgence on baseball, having his baseball on his desk. Janeway and her coffee mug, if not the coffee itself. Picard's, Shakespeare book, his big open book and all the affectations, the whole Ready Room joke that now Lower Decks has made into a meme, right? Although we know Picard's fish was apparently forced on him. Livingston was not his choice because he ended the practice with the E. Whether you want to say in canon that he decided not to, or go universe and just say he told John Dwyer he did not want to fish anymore, now that we're on movie level shows here. No enslaved, entrapped animals are going to be under his care. So obviously, number one, wants to be there later on in retirement. My God, Archer and Porthos. I mean, if you want to say a pet is an affectation, a loved one, companion, whatever you want to put the pet psychology on the spectrum. But all of these, and they tended to be commanders, they tended to be captains of ships, but everybody got an RHIP moment, right? Gosh, I mean, Kirk is the only one that didn't? I mean, he did in retirement. Thank you, Dr. McCoy, all the way from there to his Nexus cabin. Kirk's got the antiques on display. Not so much outside of those doodads in his quarters that we famously don't know a thing about, but they're sitting there, that all the fan films love to recreate. Yeah. I don't know, guys. It's like, George Burns' cigar, Dean Martin's water glass. Am I going too far back for you? Yeah, affectations, cultural throwbacks, they're props. Look, a real open flame would be verboten on a bridge, right? Anybody remember famously in Star Trek II, Nick Meyer wanting to busy up the boring walls, and he even had a couple of no smoking signs. And of all the notes that Gene was valiantly trying to throw at Harv and Nick for Star Trek II as his new position in the Star Trek universe was making itself obvious, of all the things he campaigned for and pointed out, one of the things they actually finally paid attention to was taking down the no smoking signs. Because, in Gene's mind, people were a little more perfect and nobody smoked because everybody realized what a health hazard it was. Why would intelligent, sane people do that? And now, if you want to come back at Rios' cigar on that point, you might have a point. Everything I just mentioned about personal props, personal affectations might just do it. Except for the fact that we never once see Rios light it up. So, we never once checked the alcohol content of Dean Martin's glass. And I think in the earlier years where George Burns might have smoked a cigar on live stage or in early TV, by the end of his days, if he was off camera, if it was an interview, but performing, I could be wrong about this. It was a different time, a different era, even toward the end of his life, into the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. He might have lit up when he was on stage at Vegas. So maybe he's not the best example. But I am saying, can we allow Rios? Can we allow a Rio this? I mean, because going with the idea that sometimes a cigar is just a prop? I think so. Now, if we see him light up, if I've overlooked something, but I think I checked it. I think I consulted around. If he's off planet, maybe we're just going to have to chalk this one up to cultural heritage, the way we have with everyone else, 2502 or not. You would have to say that Rios is an individual, and he's had a track. He's had some trauma, and he's come back from trauma, apparently, and he's back in the mainstream again. So good on him. Good on everybody that we see in Picard in that way. But overall, guys, the big picture here is sometimes you can see it on the pad back there, sometimes not. But this gets back to what I like to call one of the original Trekland hashtags, right? Texture, not trivia. Hello, tag. Texture, not trivia, meaning that when something goes against the assumption you've always had, maybe it was even a stated line of dialogue or something that's in a big bold graphic, something you've heard a creator, Gene, all the way back to, saying for decades and decades and decades, and then something comes along to violate that. Is it an error? Was it an off the cuff mistake that no one really put thought into, or was it an intentional creative choice, either with a visual or with a concept, with a character moment? Whatever it is, if you saw it, that means it's on film. And we might disagree. We might even see the creators, if it was an oopsie moment, we might even see people walk that back real quick. And then yet the purists among us are left with, oh, but I saw it. I saw that no smoking sign in the transporter in that one scene before they took it down. Yeah. We could go on and on with the list of those forever. And that's what's kept everybody from Phil Ferrand and the Nitpicker's Guide all the way down to the modern internet and all of our friends who love to poke those things out, whether or not it's for nefarious clickbait or not. But I'm just going to say, how do we deal with that? Texture, not trivia. Tags, not distractions. Boom. Texture, not trivia. That is the exception that proves the rule. Does anybody else in Starfleet carry even an unlit cigar? Maybe not. Maybe in the thousands and thousands of Starfleet officers, even among the hundreds that you might even say, well, RHIP, rank has its privilege. I mean, if Ro ever came back to Starfleet, would she be allowed to use her Bajoran earring rather than the way Riker dressed down a mere ensign that had a black resume and a horrible track record a mile long? Criminal record, in fact. Maybe rank might have its privilege. But if no one else in Starfleet has the affectation of a cigar, unlit or not, maybe that's the point. Maybe no one else in Starfleet, maybe no one else in Starfleet keeps a cigar, even as a prop. We don't even know what it's made of. If you want to talk about the cans, even the sweat of constant contact on your fingertips, the moisture pulling in the carcinogenic material from the tobacco into your skin over time. Maybe it's not even actual tobacco leaves. But Rios is obviously a romantic, even if he's not quite as depressed a romantic as he was when we first met him. Anyway, once again, hey, IDIC, we love our fandom. And, amid all the cheers and hurrahs and good feelings and smiles for this debut, I love the fact that some folks care enough about that corner to sound the alarm. And hey, I did the same thing with Wrath of Khan when things changed. Motion picture, but even more so Wrath of Khan. That's an awful brassy looking uniform. We're such in Reagan's America that everything's gone conservative with the militaristic uniforms. I got over it because, even the 23rd and the 24th centuries are allowed a little bit of a pendulum swing. As long as we don't go back to, medieval siege mentality. Looking at you, Vlad. All right. Did I make a point there? Does anybody get it? Did anyone else see that going by? Happen to think of texture, not trivia this week. TeePublic shirt, by the way, folks. I don't know. We'll be leaving you if you're watching us later on YouTube. So I just want to say, looking around, yay for Mike and Denise. I mentioned this last week, but if you haven't seen it, you can go to Larry Nemecek's Trekland on Facebook anyway. Catch a video link, or you can find it anywhere over the tubes. Not only are there photos, but the entire award segment for Mike and Denise getting the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Art Directors Guild. They put out a little bit of coin and made a very nice award highlight interview reel, then had the award ceremony with all the thank yous. And it was touching. Yes, everyone from Bob Justman to, of course, Herman Zimmerman to everybody, to all the people in the original Next Generation art department, to the great Bird himself. Finally, it was very touching, very sweet. So congratulations again to Mike and Denise, and an R.I.P. to Laurel Goodwin, who had been the original Yeoman Jay and Colt, very much human, in the cage. She was someone pointed out, she was the last credited actor in the cage. Of course, our own Sandy Gempel, who was one of the Telosians, was not credited as an unspeaking extra, but she is still with us. And bless his heart, Robert Butler, the director, is still with us. I had the great opportunity to have him on Portal 47 first, and then live at Comic-Con San Diego in 2019 in the before times. Just talked with his son the other day. Hopefully we'll get him on camera once more for another project. But Laurel, we had Laurel interviewed for Communicator back in the day, and we had her as part of our Women of Star Trek issue back in the day for Communicator, when that was the official magazine. And she sent me some photos that don't say anything. I totally found them the other day, sadly, that I'd never returned to her. But it was some shots of her and Elvis from some of her movie clips she had. I'll have to get those out and run them as a memorial. But yes, rest in peace, Laurel. She had a thankless job in that pilot. I hope if the show had picked up. In fact, there's an interview where she talks about she had been told they loved her, but the moment they changed Jeff Hunter and Pike as the captain and went a different direction, that was really it wasn't that NBC hated the entire cast. They wanted to go ahead with a new pilot. It was Jeff Hunter that didn't want to. And once that happened, they just wanted to see a whole different chemistry. So she was not invited back, along with all the rest of the cast, aside famously for that pointy-eared guy. So R.I.P. Laurel. All right. As we end up this part of the show, I do want to thank all of our Patreons. Once again, as always, Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Keith Rombach, Justin Porteous, Nathaniel Robinson, and Blaze K. And hey, our live wires of our Patreons, Rusty Harold, he can't talk, Rusty Harold, Halbert Goodjohnson, Robert McLean, Alan Hoansey, J.R. Poole, Byron Bailey, Dave Gregory, our newest Patreon, Gay Clevin Lundstrom, and Casey Shafsky. Thanks a lot, folks. If you want to jump in on my Patreon and help support, apparently it needs the support, help support our live streaming efforts across all these Trekland channels. It's $5 and $10 a month. I keep it very simple. Patreon.com/Trekland Live. Of course, we're into season 8 now, and our newest episode of the Trek Files is up over at our Facebook page, The Trek Files, or at podcastroddenberry.com. You can get all the Roddenberry podcasts. We've had some changes in the lineup. You want to check out everything that's going on. This week, we go into the mailbag with my good friend and producer, John Champion. We're back in the mailbag, Gene's mailbag from the 70s, that is, and we have some fun and some poignant letters this week. So you want to give a listen to that. And hey, do you know the word penultimate? It means next to the last. And this week is our next to the last episode of our original weekly format for Live Sport Live. So Dr. Ali and Dr. Trek will be back Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UK time. It'll be our next to last episode before our finale the week later, live, both of us together as part of Virtual TrekCon 3. We're working on a special show, still taking your ideas. So check it out over on the page. The page will survive. The brand will survive. We'll still be doing specials. We may do some live panels at cons. So we're keeping the Discord and the page. And I hear tell that moderator Jared may keep a monthly Zoomy chatty thing going for the lifers, because we had such a great community. We do have a great community. Hope you can join us. And of course, anytime you want to join me, please like and subscribe on the YouTube where you are. If you are, it's Larry Nemecek's Trekland. Same for Instagram. Same for Facebook. Twitter is at Larry Nemecek, and portal47.net if you want to jump in with the live divers. I've been talking to some of the folks working on the current shows, and I'm so glad that we're finally at a point where now everybody is a little freer to talk. Hey, it's safety in numbers is what that's all about. So sometimes a cigar is just a prop, Star Trek. If you're leaving us now, please, please, please stay healthy. Don't take anything for granted out there. Stay woke Check the sources is what I mean by that. And then you can trust what they're telling you. And if it is credible, then open your mind to maybe a new way of thinking. If it's legit, see how that works? It's kind of complicated. Or maybe it's not so complicated at all. Well, nothing's as complicated as me wishing you to trek well.